Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to my language lounge. Just want to give a little bit of progress or status update on my studying here, as well as there was actually kind of something that I wanted to talk about. So, I've been in book 2 for a little while. I think this is my second week, and I'm starting to move a little faster. So I'm now on lesson 7. 7, yes. And I think when I recorded my last video, I was on lesson, I want to say 2, maybe 3. I think I was on 2. But, so I'm moving a little faster. And there's 2 reasons for that. One is that I've been studying a little more. Like, I've been studying, I've taken this book with me to work, and I've been studying every break period, and then every, most lunch periods. I usually come home on lunch to take Ellie out for a walk, for a little bit of a walk. So if I take this to work with me, that usually doesn't come home with me when I come on lunch. But it just kind of depends on the day. That's whether I have it with me. But both of my break periods are spent studying this, and I've been able to spend more time after I get off studying. Reason number 2 that I'm studying a little faster is because I'm doing things a little differently. One of the things that I had originally thought that I liked about this series, and I think I even mentioned in one of the videos, is that I liked it, and I still kind of do, but it's the, let me see if I can find the last one. It's these. You may not be able to see this very well from up there, but it's these workbook areas. So, the idea behind the workbook areas, from their point of view, is that the workbook areas are what, according to them, help you to recall information, I think is what they said. They kind of go over it in the first workbook area for lesson 1. Yeah, the workbook area in lesson 1, the first thing it says, studies have shown that the way to remember something long term is the act of trying to recall the information. This is why this book has an extensive workbook area. There's a key for this workbook area in the Katakana workbook section at the end of each lesson. So, their thinking is that in doing these exercises, it will help you to recall the information better, because you are then forcing yourself to recall the information. It's asking you a question, and it's asking it to you most of the time, with the exception of a couple of them, in Japanese. And so you have to not only read the question in Japanese and translate it in your head, or just know what it says, whichever, but you then also have to answer it in Japanese. Whether you figure it out in English first and then translate it, that's completely up to where you are at the time. And while there may be a little bit of truth to this, I used to think that there was truth to that too. But at least for me, it seems that isn't actually the case. Again, this is just for me. For some people that might work. But from my experience in doing the first, because I think I did the lessons for the first 2, maybe 3 lessons. I did the exercises, or at least most of them. And apparently Ellie's going to be in here. But I did the exercises for the first few lessons, a couple of lessons. But what I discovered was that as I was doing them, it wasn't helping me to recall the words or the any of the vocabulary I learned or anything like that. What it was helping me to do, what it was helping me to recall, was the grammar. Now, as far as in my mind, the reason that I'm able to recall the grammar better is because I actually really like grammar. That's one of the reasons that I actually like these books, even now that I'm not really doing the exercises anymore. The reason that I still like them is because I really enjoy grammar. I enjoy linguistics. I enjoy how languages learn. It's one of my fascinations with languages. I enjoy how they work. And so, being able to study something like this that is also explaining the grammar is actually really fascinating for me. Is it helping me learn faster? No. That has no bearing on it. It's just fascinating for me to learn. But in the research that I've done, and in everybody else's experience, and even in my experience too, as limited as that has been so far, is that in focusing on the grammar too hard, you will not learn to speak the language well, you will, but it'll take longer. So one of the thinking behind that is, if you look at how a baby learns a language, and I kind of watched a video on this a little bit ago, and then it kind of made me kind of take a look at my own son, Aiden, and kind of look at how he's learning to speak English, because he's not going to be bilingual by any means, because we always speak English. But it got me to thinking about how he learns a language. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, you learn a language by speaking, like children do." But the problem is that children don't learn a language by speaking it. A child like Aiden, the first words that he actually was able to fully form weren't until he was a little over a year old, or somewhere around a year old. So for that first year, there was no speaking whatsoever. So speaking is not how you learn to speak a language. It helps to learn some of the finer points of a language, but it doesn't actually help with learning the language. Aiden understands what we are saying, even though he himself cannot say it. And the reason for that is that he has spent the first year of his life listening. He's done nothing but listen and reading, because we read to him a lot. We read to him before we go to bed and just at random times during the day. And so listening and reading has been how he's getting the language. And it's us, as we're talking to him, or we're doing something, we're telling him what we're doing, or what it is that we're looking at, or something like that. In the case of like the names of the Disney characters that he knows. In the Disney movies, he knows the name of Ralph and Vanellope. He calls them Ruff and Uppy. The reason he knows that is because he has little, we have the Infinity figures from when that video game was a thing. And we have a Wreck-It Ralph figure and a Vanellope Von Schweetz figure. And whenever he would have them and he would show them to us, we would say, "Yeah, that's Ralph." And "Yeah, that's Vanellope." Or "Yeah, that's Buzz," or Woody, or Jesse, or whoever it was. So now, he knows their names, because we've done that enough. He had that input. And now that he's figuring out how words are formed and how his tongue works, and everything like that, he's able to say those words. He's able to say Ruff and Uppy. He's able to say Bush. That's what he calls Buzz. That's also what he calls Woody for some reason. We're not sure why. Woody and Buzz are both Buzz. But that's how a baby learns a language, is by a lot of input. It's not by speaking, and it's not by doing exercises, and it's definitely not by learning grammar. So, with all that being said, this is one of the things I want to talk about. Is this is how I'm going to do things going forward. I'm not going to change that much. Like I said, I'm still doing some of the exercises. So I'm doing, like I'm on lesson 7 right now. So the katakana that I just learned is mami mu me mo. So mami mu me mo. And then I learned how to draw the characters. The next exercises that I'm doing is they have word practice, where it has words, in this case 12 different words that use mami mu me or mo in the word, and it has you fill in whichever of the mami mu me mo it is. And so I've been doing that, and then the next section is words you can write. So it's words that, with the katakana that I have learned, I am able to just write out fully in katakana with no romaji at all. So words like ham, which is hamu, where memo, which is memo, peach, which is momo. I don't know what language that came from. I'm kind of curious now. Game, which is gamu. What else is there on here that's kind of fun? Slim or stylish, sumato. So like smart. And it just has you write them out like that. So that is the exercise I'm doing. Well, I'm doing one more of them, which is the katakana matching, which brings up 2 columns. On the left column here is all the katakana, and on the right column is the romaji equivalent, and it has you match whichever ones. So what I do is I actually cover up the right side. I go down the list and I figure out which one each one is. Then I uncover the romaji and then match them up. That's how I've been doing it. But then after that, they have the actual workbook area. That is the part that I'm skipping. and I've skipped it since, like I said, since about lesson 3, I think. I feel like lesson 3 was the last time that I did it. Nope, lesson 2 was the last one I did it, because I did not do it on lesson 3. So, and here's why I'm doing that. One is because I don't want to get myself too far into the grammar. I really like the grammar, and I'm still going to study the grammar in here and learn it, but I'm not going to use that workbook because it was just practicing the grammar for me. I still have issues remembering the vocabulary. Like, I still have issues remembering how to say this year, last year. I remember how to say today and tomorrow, which is kyo and ashita. But there's a lot of word. The vocab lists in these books are pretty big. I mean, they're small comparatively, but they're fairly decent size. So I'm going to continue doing it this way, skipping the workbook sections and essentially only learning the katakana out of here, and then studying the grammar and stuff that it shows, but not actually doing the workbook sections. Which means that by the time I'm recording a video again next week, I will probably be done with this book. And then I'm going to move on to book 3. And this is where it starts teaching kanji as opposed to the hiragana and katakana. So, and here's one of the reasons that I'm trying to speed up how I'm doing this and get to the kanji. Everything that I've researched, every video that I've watched, literally everything that I've seen about studying the Japanese language, they all say, with the exception of one of them, he learned in a weird way, but all of them, every other one, always says, learn the kanji as soon as possible. And I agree with that, actually, and there's a good reason for it. Because if you know all the hiragana, all the katakana, that's fantastic. That's 2 entirely new alphabets that you didn't know before, and they're completely different from your English alphabet or whatever. But those don't get you very far. You aren't going to be able to walk into Tokyo and pick up a shimbun, the newspaper. You're going to be able to pick up a newspaper and be able to read it. Why? Because it's not written in hiragana and katakana. It's written in kanji. There's some hiragana in there for particles and stuff like that, but it's written in kanji. And if you only know how to read hiragana and katakana, you're not going to be able to read that. You're not even going to be able to read a lot of the signs around Tokyo, or Osaka, or Kyoto, wherever you happen to be. And so that's one of the reasons that I want to get to the kanji as soon as possible. Once I get to the kanji, and I'm studying the kanji in book 3, again, I'm going to keep going through these, and I'm going to continue to go through book 4 and 5. But I'm also going to add on. I'm going to add on the program Link, LINGQ, because that encourages you. That program is all about learning through the act of reading and listening. And once I've started to learn the kanji in here, and the fact that I will know all the hiragana and katakana is going to help me immensely in that. And I'm going to be able to just start learning as many kanji as possible and actually be able to start picking up the language. So I feel like that's the best course for me to take. Now, is that the best course for everybody? Not necessarily. Again, I cannot stress this enough, everybody learns languages in a different way. I don't even know a second language, and I know this. Everyone learns in a different way. Regardless of whether it's learning a language, learning math or science or history, everyone learns differently. So going through and being like, oh, this is the only way to study this language, or this is the only way to study this language, is complete bull. It is just a complete lie. I can go through this entire series of books and never be able to speak the language. That is an entire possibility. Somebody else could go through the same books, the exact same way that I did, and learn to speak to like an intermediate or, lower advanced level. Maybe not lower advanced, probably intermediate. That just comes down to how you learn. Like I said, for me, I'm learning a lot of grammar from here, which is fascinating for me, and it actually kind of helps, at least it helps the language, like how it works, click in my mind. And I'm not sure that I would have had the same effect if I'd been studying it through Link, through just reading it. Because for me, I want to know how it works. But that's just me. So, But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. Give you a progress report. Like I said, I'm on lesson 7 here, and there's 12. There's 12 lessons in here, so I actually right at the end of lesson 7, I have one more thing to do in there, and then I'll be on lesson 8, so then I'll just have 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, so I'll have 5 lessons left. So, and then after that, I'll be on to book 3, so hopefully, like I said, next week when you see me, I most likely will be on book 3, and also be adding on Link, so I'm doing some reading. So, but yeah, anyway, thank you all for joining me this week. Hopefully you'll stick around with me next week, but until then, don't forget to thank the Phoenicians.
Let's get some sun, baby, it's time to go. All we need to put on is the radio. I can feel